Hi, welcome to the Reboot Loading Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Today's episode is a part 2 continuation from last week where I spoke with recruiter Kray Blanding. In this episode, we talk about resumes and the possibility of introducing bias within the interview process and so much more. I hope you enjoy, and don't forget to check out our previous episode. I have worked with career coach, resume people, all the above. And the $1,000,000 question that comes up a lot of times is one-page resumes versus multiple pages. Which do
For
you
non-video
prefer
viewers, I just long sigh eye roll.
Which
Oh my
do you
gosh.
prefer as a recruiter? And does it really vary? Because the reason I'm asking is I feel like in tech, you have to provide a little bit more information. So it's almost impossible to get a one-pager that actually gives good info.
One-page resumes are useless. 30-page resumes are useless. All-page resumes are useless depending on how you use them. I hate this. Everyone dies or lives and dies on the resume. Your resume is an advertisement for you. If it is a long, drawn-out, in-depth, detailed resume, that tells me a lot about who you are. If it is a short, one-word resume for each job, that also tells me a lot about who you are. Take that for what it's worth. With that being said, let me try and give you a little bit more of a concrete answer.
Okay.
My opinion on resumes, and I've talked to a lot of recruiters and we all share the same opinion when it comes to resumes. I do not care the length. It could be within reason. Like I said, 30-page resume, I'm not reading the whole thing. No one is. But within reason, your first page should have probably around 2 years worth of job history on it, give or take 6 months, and depending on the number of jobs you've had. There's no hard and fast rule. It should also have a list of all of your skills on it. It should have a general paragraph of what you do. Mine would be, I'm a senior technical recruiter specializing in candidate experience. I've hired senior principal level developers as well as junior developers. I have some marketing, IT support, and project management recruitment experience as well as some blue collar HVAC recruiting. That would be like my quick little bold, let me give you a glimpse at one paragraph. This is all I've done. And then again, like I said, about 1 to 2 years worth of history within that first page and a half. And here's why. As a recruiter, I'm going to scroll your first page and maybe into the second. And if that first 1.5 to 2 years is worth it, I will keep reading.
Okay.
And I will mostly finish your resume. So for example, if I'm hiring a senior software developer who needs to have 8 years of experience working in Java, I am going to look at if you've got Java in the top of your resume. And again, this is where that Boolean searching matters. Where that AI Boolean searching, it's not AI, it's just a search. You can Boolean search in Google if you really want. Look up Google Boolean search and you can do it right now. They're going to just look for that, right? Okay, cool, Java. Sweet, this person has Java. Do they have 8 years of experience? And what was that 8 years experience? So job length, title, company. Cool, this person was at 4 years at Amazon. They were a SD2. Cool, so on and so forth. Then they're just going to keep going down. And in their head, they're going to just add up the years of type of experience. And then they'll read the rest of the resume if that all makes sense.
Okay.
Right? The number of pages of your resume does not matter. But if you cannot get the right information on 2 pages, that does matter. And by that, I mean, go more pages. You need to be able to get all of your information to the recruiter or to the hiring manager in a digestible way. Do what you have to do to get that done. Don't go overboard and don't go underboard. My resume currently is 2 pages to give you an idea. And it's not because I'm holding fast to the 2-page resume. It's because I was able to get everything I needed to on 2 pages to present myself in a way that I'm comfortable with. If I needed to go 3, I would have gone 3.
I appreciate you answering that because me personally, I have encountered where I feel like when I was applying with like a one-pager, it felt off to me, but I was like, hey, maybe let's try it. Let's throw it out there. And then I worked with a recruiter who was like, okay, do you have a longer one? Because this doesn't really have a lot in there.
Yeah. There's your information right there, right?
Yeah.
Your recruiter is telling you, and this is where a good recruiter is going to give you some information. He told you what was wrong. I don't have enough. Like, your titles are right. but what did you do there? Because specifically, and again, I'm going to go back to software development because that's what I know a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
but a senior software developer really only means time.
Mm-hmm.
All that means is the person has been in the role for a good enough time. And the reason is there is no uniform thing that a senior software developer does across all positions of all companies, right? In some companies, senior developer literally just means they're a developer with at least 5 to 6 years of experience, and that's the only requirement. In other companies, that means they are a developer with that time requirement. It's almost always that time requirement, at least 6 years. Plus, they are leading projects
Mm-hmm.
internally. Like they're a lead developer. They are owning a chunk of the product that they're developing. So, like we're currently on Zoom right now, somebody would have owned the chat feature. And there was a senior developer in charge of developing the chat feature, and he had junior developers that he mentored. In some companies, that would be a senior developer, and he would have to do the mentorship part. He would have to do this part. He would have to do that part. In other companies, it's just a length of time that
Mm-hmm.
they'd have to be tenured, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why it's really important that you have not just the title, but what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Why were you a senior? Why were you a junior? Why were you a principal? And as long as you are getting that information into your resume, it's good enough. While we're on the topic of resumes, if you don't mind, the thing I
Sure, sure.
hated as a recruiter, and I know, oh my gosh, so many gurus talk about this. If
Mm-hmm.
your job is not a marketing job, if your job is not visual, and
Mm-hmm.
by that I mean your job isn't to be a flashy visual person, don't do flashy visual resumes. They don't work. They don't provide you any advantage at all. Remember when I talked about that parsing information?
Mm-hmm.
They don't get parsed properly, which means they aren't going to come up in searches. If
The less
your
more.
It's not that less is more. I can't tell you how many hiring managers, when it comes to the recruiting process, say, just give me solid resumes and I'll go from there. This might be a little bit of an ADHD tangent, but it's the same with like the questions of when people ask, why do you want to work at this company? Who cares? Sorry, I'm getting a little hot here, but like, who cares? It doesn't matter 99% of the time. When
Mm-hmm.
people ask me, why do you want to work for that company? Because it's a paycheck. I can feed my family, especially right now with me actively looking, right? Right now, I just need to put food on the table so my kids don't starve. No, I'm not anywhere near there, but you get my point. Besides, whenever you're asking a very ambiguous question, like, why do you want to work here? That is the moment you're going to let bias slip into your decision making process. Because now I'm not looking for solid evidence, evidence based hiring. I'm now going off of opinion because there are a myriad of reasons why somebody wants to work for company XYZ. Paycheck. They actually believe in the product. They had a family member who worked there who said it was really cool. Their best friend works there who likes working there. It's the job that's literally 5 minutes down the road. That's where the company headquarters are. So they have a super short commute. All of those are valid reasons to want to work for a company
Mm-hmm.
and may or may not hold higher or lower strength in that individual person's meaning, if
Mm-hmm.
you get my point, right? Like
Right.
somebody could say it's a 30-minute drive, but my best friend works there. I really want to work there. Someone could say it's a 5-minute drive. That's a cool bonus. And I'll put that in there, but meh, like it's not the end of the world if I don't get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they've both mentioned the drive. Like you don't know what that means. It's super ambiguous. There's no real concrete information in it. So you as the interviewer are going to look at that and go, yeah, my best friend works here too. Cool, we could be best friends. So sure, I'll say yes.
Right.
Right. Or, oh, wow, you really like our product. Glad that you like my product. I think you'd be a great person to work for this product. Honestly, probably not, because that means that they're already coming in thinking it's the greatest thing ever. You probably want someone who can go, I can make it better. You
Mm-hmm.
get my, like, again, I hope my point is coming across here. Well, like, yeah, it's cool to know why someone wants to work for your company. It should not be a deciding factor,
Mm-hmm.
one bit. It shouldn't matter. My dad's a hiring manager, and don't blast him on this too much, but he's brought up that question too, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. And the better way to ask that question is, what are you looking for in your next role? What are you looking for in your next company? Now you've created objectable information, right? I'm looking for growth. Okay, cool. Does this job have a growth path? Great. Now you can provide that growth path, right? So I know what people are trying to do when they ask, why do you want to work here? Because they're trying to find ways to, again, say yes or no and get the right people to work in the company. But you got to do it in a way that's either A, measurable, or B, doesn't let bias seep in randomly. And even then, what are you looking for in your next company can let bias seep in? Because someone can say, well, I'm looking for growth. Okay, well, this job doesn't have it, but it might be the cool product they want to work on regardless. I've done that. I've said yes to a company before that didn't have a humongously great growth path, and when that's something I wanted, because I liked the product and I liked the people. Like, people's reasons for doing a job change literally weekly. Right? Like, have you ever worked for a
I
company that you're like, oh man, I really don't want to go to work today, and then the next day you're like, oh, this project's so exciting.
I appreciate your realness because I think you are saying things that a lot of people are thinking. And honestly, I don't think I ever looked at it in that perspective of when they're asking, like, why do you want to work here? I've been asked that multiple times. And I was actually thinking to myself, like, if somebody asked me that again, like, how do I answer that? I need a
There's no
paycheck.
good
Like,
answer.
I
There's
need right
none.
now, I need a paycheck, but
Yeah.
if you would have asked me when I was employed previously and I may have been casually looking and I have a stream of income, it will change, right?
I'm
My answer
dancing
will
over here
change.
because you're
So
getting it. Yeah, and it drives me bonkers because, like I said, it changes daily. It changes depending on their mood. Literally, I talked to one company long ago,
Mhm,
and I wanted to work there because I wanted to get into the tech space. This was before I got back into the tech world. And then I ended up getting a gig at Amazon at the time, and I re-talked to them. They're like, "Oh, are you still looking for something? You still want to get in the tech world?" I'm like, "No, that's changed,
mhm,
but I still want to work there because I liked the company and I did a little bit more research." That's the other thing. I hate it when companies ask, "What do you know about us?" And like, as a recruiter, I do that, but I do it because I want to know what they know, so I don't just give them information they already have. And I always preface that. It's like, "Hey, what do you know about my company?" Totally okay if you say nothing at all. I can give you the information. I just don't want to overload you with information you already have. But it
right.
should never be a deciding factor in whether or not you move forward if you know everything about a company. Because guess what? 99% of the people look at your job and go, it's a job. Application, fill out, send, move on to the next one. Right? That 1% of people who are sitting there doing that special resume for that dream job, for that dream company, the problem with that is that it's so statistically insignificant that they could be the best candidate you've ever had or the worst candidate you ever have. And it doesn't matter because it's outlier. You
Mhm,
should not be making large scale decision making processes on that information. So when you are setting up your recruiting process, it should be set up in a mode that is repeatable with margin of error, obviously, but repeatable information so you can bring in, on average, the best talent you can get. I would rather hire 5 slightly above average candidates because we set up a really good process than 4 below average candidates and 1 rock star because we were asking stupid questions and we just happened to hit it right once.
mhm,
And the hardest thing to replace in companies, again, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, but the hardest thing to replace in companies is your innate company knowledge of how your company works,
mhm,
right? The person who built your humongously large tech stack, who knows every in and out of it,
mhm,
who, when it breaks, can go and go, oh, I know what broke, and doesn't have to spend 20 hours finding the one line of code, but because they know it well, goes, I know exactly what broke. I bet it's this. And then they go find it, and you've wasted all of 20 minutes. That's the person who you're going to regret losing. And
mhm,
you're going to end up losing those types of people when you do crazy, swingy hiring practices that aren't repeatable. You need them to be around long enough to transfer that knowledge. And that only happens when people are invested in staying and you've given them the ability to grow and you've done repeatable practices where that sets up. I
mhm.
think I kind of lost the train of thought there, but I hopefully it makes some sort of sense.
No,
And it
definitely.
starts at recruiting.
It also depends on the type of interviewee you are
Mhm.
because not everybody is. It's kind of going back to that when you're asking that question of, okay, why do you want to work here? Some people can be great actors, actresses,
Oh,
and just
yes.
have their canned response versus some people who are just no nonsense, and they may appear to be more of a not as good of a interviewee, I guess. If
Yeah, no, you're right. There's some people, I've hired these people before, who are really freaking good at answering questions, interview questions, right? There's books, cracking the interview code. Those are things that people can be really, really good at. but have nothing to do with the job.
Right. Right.
Right? So when you get them on board, they can do it, right? And they just can't do the job. And now you're ending up in this weird situation. It's because you're not asking in-depth, detailed questions. I think one of the things that I really started getting on board with at the last company both you and I worked at was we started doing the process of behavioral interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, tell me about a time that you did blank. And then they would go on and tell you about this in-depth project that they work on, or lightly or whatever. And then you would pick on another piece and like, okay, cool. So your team made a decision. Tell me why you came to that decision at that point. And you start to dig down into that interview process, and you can get deeper and deeper and more granular as you asking more follow-up open-ended questions to get them talking. And that can weed out the people you're talking about who can just give you, why do you want to work here? Let me give you this big flowery reason why everyone wants to work at your company. It doesn't mean anything. Get into the details, get them to start talking about themselves and what they were doing at their companies. That's going to give you more information. And then rather than asking them why you want to work here, tell them why they want to work here.
Mm-hmm.
Go, great. Now my company, you know why you want to work at my company? Because we let you take every Friday, you can leave at 2 o'clock if your work is done. Or we don't care what time you're actually working as long as your work gets done. Sure, if you want to get off at 2 to go pick up your kid from school to go play at the park because it's a sunny day, go for it. No one's going to care as long as your work's done. That's the type of stuff that you want to be doing. Don't ask them why they want to work there. Who cares?
I
So
definitely
often.
appreciate your openness about it because I feel like a lot of people are hesitant, especially in this type of market. I think, based on what you were saying before about why you want to work here and then flipping it and saying, this is why you should want to work here. I
Mhm.
think in this sort of market where it is more of an employer's market, well, a lot of times us as candidates are sitting there going and forgetting the fact that this is a two-way street. We're also
Yeah.
interviewing the company. And yes, we may be out of work for a long period of time and just really looking for anything to fall in our lap at that point. But
Mhm.
really, if it's something that's going to compromise your values and your beliefs and your work ethic, like
Um,
how do you navigate around that as far as making sure that the company is a right fit for you, even though you just need a job?
you lie. Um, don't tell anyone I said that. No, look.
Let me just preface this by saying all of the opinions on this podcast are opinions and not legal advice for anything. So,
Yeah. Look, okay. I understand having values. It's going to sound a little contrary to everything I've said before, okay? So just bear with me a little bit while I go through this. I understand having strong values. I have them, right? I've purposely avoided politics having this conversation because it really doesn't matter, but it does affect stuff,
mhm,
right? And it does affect the job you want to go to. And I have talked to companies where I go, "Man, my politics just don't match with what you're spouting. They
mhm,
just don't. But I need a paycheck."
mhm,
And the best way to do it is just avoid the subject altogether. If they bring it up, either change the subject, give a very politically correct answer, and move on,
mhm,
right? You don't need to make it known. You, as a candidate, and I think this is the thing people need to start realizing, are replaceable. I'm
mhm,
sorry to say it, it sucks, but remember when I said there's 100 applicants for that one job? You're replaceable. You do not matter in the grand scheme of things to that company. They're going to tell you you do. And to that individual hiring manager, to that individual recruiter, you do matter. They
mhm,
care about you, but the company doesn't, because the company's job is to make money. And if that means not hiring you or laying you off, they're going to do it. That is their job. They're beholden to their stakeholders, whether that be an individual because they're privately owned, publicly owned, they're going through whatever process and have RSUs, doesn't matter. They are observant to somebody. So when it comes to working with companies that have vastly different political views as you, there's going to be that line where you're like, I just can't cross that. And then here's the other thing you got to remember when you're working for a large company, or any company for that matter. The company's views are not yours,
mhm,
even if they match. Even if the company that you work for and your political ideological views are one for one all across the board, one of you can change, and that's okay.
mhm,
And I think we need to do a better job as a whole, as a society, of realizing that companies are not individuals and individuals who are working are not companies. It's like watching a movie, right? Like when you watch Captain America, you
Mhm.
know Captain America's fake. You know it's not real. Sorry if you
What?
didn't know. I know, right? Spoiler alert. But like you know it's not real. You know it's not there, but you can suspend your disbelief for an hour and a half and go, "Yeah, but it's fun." It's the same with the job. Guess what? No company is doing 100% good things. That's just the matter of fact. That's just the way the world works, okay? But I can separate that a little bit and go, "But what I'm working on is really cool. I
Mhm.
like what I'm working on." Some
Mhm.
of the strongest and smartest people who are making the largest change are people working for large conglomerate companies. Think of the gal who blew the whistle on Google, right, with their discriminatory practices, right? She loved working at Google. She blew the whistle because she loved working at Google, right? And that's the, I think the really important thing to remember is that you're not your company. Your company is not you. Your viewpoints are not the same. So I joke with the lying part, but you can just say, look, I can separate the
Mhm.
difference.
I do want to ask you two more things, just more on
Mhm.
the personal side.
Go for it. I'll
I
try
want
not to soapbox.
I know. I want to know more about your beta testing for video
Oh,
games. You're an avid gamer,
yeah,
as well as you said you've flown a plane. So I need
have.
to know about all this.
Yeah, neither
Tell
one are
me.
as exciting as it sounds, I promise you. They're kind of those fun, like two truths and a lie that I love to use because
Mhm.
people are like, no way. And then I do, and I'm like, oh my gosh. No, so I my dad worked on original Xbox back when I don't know if you knew this, but Xbox was initially the code name of Xbox was Xbox. And then they just never came up with one and kept the code name as the real name. We had a dev kit that we would plug into our TV in our van. We had an 18 passenger
Okay.
van as a grown up. And we would do cross country trips playing the developer Xbox. Not even kidding. It was like a big silver box that was huge, like think twice the size of the original Xbox. So yeah, I was beta testing a lot of those games. Like I don't know if you remember the game Fusion Frenzy on the Xbox. I beta tested that. I beta tested the original Halo as a tiny little kid. Totally shouldn't have because I was like 8 at the time, but you know, hey. Uh, um, yeah, I did that. The plane one is not nearly as exciting. I was doing, like I said, I'm an Eagle Scout, so I was doing the aviation merit badge, and a family friend of ours was a pilot, and he
Mhm.
had a tiny little prop plane, tiny. It was
Mhm.
like a 5-seater. And we went up in there, and he, I was what, I think I was like 12 at the time, 12 or 13. And we're flying. He goes, "Hey, Craig, put your hands on the wheel." So I put my hands on. He's all right, put your foot on the pedals. And I could barely reach them. And he goes, "Yeah, cool." And then he just looks over at me and just lets go of everything and goes, "You're flying." And just sat there. And I'm like, and little 12-year-old me is like, "I'm gonna crash the plane." My dad's in there, my brother's in there. I'm like, "I'm gonna kill everybody." And then
Oh
he had me
no.
turn. It was a lot of fun.
I know you don't think that it sounds as exciting, but I've never flown a plane. I've never been in the front of a plane. Well, I want to say thank you so much for
No problem.
coming on here and being real about your experiences as a recruiter, giving some great advice and kind of debunking a lot of the thoughts that us as candidates on the other side of the recruitment process are feeling right now. I really appreciate that.
And I would just like to add, like, obviously everything I've said is my opinion. Don't say any company stands by anything I specifically said. But I would also say, like, even recruiters forget, like, we're people, we're human, we make mistakes when reaching out to people. It happens all the time.
Yes, we have, and I've mentioned this before. We have like a list of recruiters we like. There are some that are better than others.
Add me to that list, everybody.
But I do have to say, I mean, just you being open and honest about your own experiences. I mean, you are out there still trying to look for work and doing what you obviously, I mean, I know you have a passion for recruiting. Just
I
talking
love
to
it.
you, you're very, very passionate about it. And I know that any company that gets you is just going to be super happy. They have to be
Appreciate it.
open and honest with their experience with their processes. But I will put your LinkedIn information
Please do.
show notes if anyone would like to contact Kray and get in touch with him, talk about his experience.
Yeah.
I do, for what it's worth. I mean, I think you could start your own podcast talking about
I don't know.
these
I wouldn't know what to talk about.
Hey, I mean, I would love to have you on again as well if
Happy to.
open.
Yeah, happy to.
Just following up, maybe if it's after you've had your new adventure that you go on with a new job.
Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. But I mean, even then, I'm happy to just come on and talk about anything, whether it be recruiting, job hopping, whatnot. I can help, or I can at least just talk and be an ear for people to chat with.
Yeah, I think it's important to just be real about some things. And that was something that I wanted to bring with this podcast, is just to bring the realness of our situation out into the open, talk about things that they're tough. It's tough to talk about it. But I wanted it to just be more real from real people. It's just, this is what it is.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it as well.
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely have a follow-up conversation in the future, talk about all the good things.
Sounds good. I'd appreciate it, Stephanie.
If you're interested in becoming a guest on my show, all the information on how to contact me is available in the show notes. Would love to speak with other laid-off individuals, mental health professionals, recruiters, business and career coaches, and resume writers. Also, if you're enjoying the content and would like a shout-out in an upcoming episode, a link in how you can support this podcast is available in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.